Hey guys, welcome back. Been a little bit and I hope you're enjoying the more steady flow of videos. Today I'm going to be teaching you about time complexity in a lovely little recording studio we've got set up over here. Hopefully it's a bit of a break from the proofs and all the dull stuff. This is a personal favourite of mine. So we'll start from the very beginning. So what is time complexity? So time complexity is the estimated change in runtime when increasing the input size of an algorithm. Now, typically we refine this as ON, where N is the input size, contributing to some factors. So it might be like ON squared or like to O2N. Now, there are other things you might run into, like we have omega O here, and that just means that's like medium case. We use O because as worst case, it is the most relevant to tractability. I'll cover more tractability in a sec, but just know we're going to use O. It refers to worst case, and N is the input size of the algorithm. Now this input's going to take a little bit, so this is why I'm going to start the example here. So long before Titanic in ancient Rome, I'm going to say 2,500 years ago, it will come back, so keep that number in mind. There was a beautiful gem that was discovered that all 15 leaders of Rome wanted to see. We're a courier, and we're going to take this gem to all the leaders. Now, we're a bit lazy, and we found one of our friends has developed 2 new feats of Roman engineering. Firstly, they have a computer that can do 10 calculations per second, and a time machine that can freeze us until that computer is done.
Oh, Matthias, I don't know how I'm going to deliver this package in this afternoon. I don't know how to find the optimal route. It's going to take me forever to try and figure out how to deliver this.
Well, Callius, lucky for you, I've just developed a machine that might be able to help us out. It works at a blistering 10 calculations per second, and it could definitely figure this problem out in, I don't know, surely it can't be more than an afternoon. It's only 15 people. Now there's a time machine attached to it. You can have a nice rest in there while the computer runs its magic. When it's done, it'll wake you right back up, Callius the courier. Just step in there and I promise it'll work.
Okay, I'm excited. Let's go.
So naively, we're going to let this computer try and find the optimal path with brute force of the traveling salesman problem. So we put it into the computer, we step in, and we'll let the time machine do its thing. Now I'm just going to bring back a little example about traveling salesman here. Remember, it's not just using Dijkstra's to solve it. Traveling salesman is about the efficient path to all nodes here, not just between one and others. So, as I said, O means worst case. Again, this is relevant because in computer science, we are pessimistic and we always assume the worst. So we always assume the input is going to be as complicated as possible. I remember talking to some of you when you were doing your last SAT about complicated versus size. If we're talking about a graph, that means that the graph is going to be as connected as possible. If we're going to look here at a sorting algorithm example, you can see the input is going to be a list in reverse order. This means the calculations have to be done as many times as possible with that input size. Now, polynomial versus non-polynomial. So on the right is going to be a handy little guide. It sort of runs through all kinds of algorithms here and describes them as polynomial or non-polynomial. Now, the really nice way I like to think of it is something is polynomial unless n changes, when n increases, it changes the rate of growth. For instance, if it's k to the n, it means as n's increasing, the factor itself is increasing, whereas n squared, it's only increasing the n part, not the squared part. Remember, when calculating these, when you do your manual trace view algorithms, you're going to have a ton of leftover constants and all that, and you really just throw it all away. We think worst case, we be pessimistic, and we assume that those little plus 10s, plus 1s, or maybe like times 5n, if it has an n squared in it, don't matter in the grand scheme of how n's a billion, okay? So time complexities, they're always going to sort of fit the layout here. You might have extra variables added in, but they're always going to look something like one of those. Now, tractability is a word I've said before. I'll say it again and you're going to hear it all the time. Basically, tractability refers to the ability of a problem to be able to be solved. So some problems, as we're about to see with traveling salesman, in the nature, they're considered intractable, and therefore it is impossible, within reason, to guarantee you have found the correct solution. Typically, this means that intractable problems require you to do a large amount of brute force and test every solution in order to come with the correct, be able to define the correct solution here. So if the problem's NP, it just means if it's too large, there's no way in a timely manner we can solve it. Now we do use things like greedy, slash heuristics to solve this, but it doesn't always work, nor can it always guarantee the best solution. So that's the main thing.
Oh, what a nice rest. That was invigorating. I'm ready to do my journey to travel. Oh, what's happened? Where am I? It's been 2,500 years. Everyone I know is dead.
Now we're back to the example. So even though we only had 15 nodes to travel from, it's 2,500 years later and we're in the present day again. So the reason for this is traveling salesman problem is intractable. It's a greedy solution to it is O(n) factorial. This meant even though we could do a blistering 10 computations a second, we have to do something like 13 times 10 to the power of 10 calculations in order to finally solve our graph problem here. If only we had used a greedy solution. Now, I really hope this does help cover up some things, especially about tractability here. I understand it's a lot more theory-based than it was practical. Maybe try going through some of your sorting algorithms at a time complexity that they are to reassure yourself. Maybe walk through Dijkstra's, see how you can prove that it's n squared. Maybe run through some sorting algorithms and see how they work out. Lastly, I am going to mention Bogor sort really quick. I know you guys love it. Bogor sort doesn't have a time complexity because Bogor sort isn't an algorithm by definition, as it can never promise an end. It will run forever, so we don't consider anything with Bogor sort. It has an omega time complexity, but just leave it there. Bogor sort does not have a worst case. Anyway, thanks guys. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope this new recording studio adds some flair into our videos, and I hope you guys understand everything. Again, most of this stuff is covered in the LMS. Please look through it if you feel unconfident with anything, or come to us in class. Thanks, guys.